What if the chaos in your life isn't a sign that everything is falling apart, but that everything is about to change? What if the confusion, the silence, the closed doors, the deep frustration are not the end of your story, but the tension right before the breakthrough? Sometimes, when God is about to shift your life completely, it doesn't look like a miracle, it looks like a mess. But there are signs, clear ones. And once you recognize them, you realize, this isn't random, this isn't punishment, this is preparation. One of the first signs that God is about to change your story is discomfort in places that used to feel normal. The job that once brought stability now feels draining. The relationship you used to count on suddenly feels distant. The routines that once gave you peace start to feel empty. You feel restless, like you're outgrowing your surroundings, but you don't know where to go. That's not failure. That's divine agitation. Just like a bird stirs the nest to push its young out to fly, God sometimes allows discomfort to wake you up. He disrupts your comfort so you'll stop settling for less than what He's prepared for you. Another sign is divine disconnection. People begin to leave. Opportunities shut down. Doors that you prayed would open remain stubbornly closed. It feels like rejection, but what if it's redirection? Think about Abraham. God told him to leave everything familiar and go to a land He would show him. No map, no clear destination, just faith. Sometimes, God has to separate you before He elevates you. Not everyone can go where you're going. Not every connection is meant to last the journey. And though it feels like loss, it's really alignment. And then, there's the silence. That haunting, invisible silence, where your prayers feel like echoes and heaven seems quiet. You start to wonder if you've been forgotten. But silence doesn't mean absence. In fact, some of the loudest moves of God begin in silence. Before Jesus began His ministry, He was led into the wilderness 40 days of silence and solitude. No crowds, no miracles. Just hunger, testing, and silence. But when He emerged, everything changed. Sometimes, the silence means God is working behind the scenes, refining you, protecting you, getting ready to launch you. You might also notice increased spiritual warfare, strange resistance, unexplained heaviness, fatigue for no reason, old temptations resurfacing. You're not imagining it. When God is about to change your story, the enemy gets nervous. Because the one thing hell fears most is a believer on the edge of transformation. The attacks intensify not because you're weak, but because you're dangerous. The enemy doesn't fight what doesn't threaten him. So when the pressure increases, don't panic, prepare. There's also a shift in your appetite. The things that used to entertain you no longer satisfy. You crave more meaning. You long for deeper truth. You start to separate from shallow conversations and empty habits. You become hungry for the Word, for clarity, for purpose. This is no accident. It's the Spirit awakening you. God is recalibrating your soul, changing your desires, preparing you for a higher level of responsibility and vision. When your appetite changes, your future is not far behind. And then, unexpectedly, God starts sending you whispers. Not loud signs, not neon lights, just moments. A scripture that hits different. A sermon that speaks to your exact situation. A stranger's words that confirm what you've been quietly thinking. These are not coincidences. They're divine breadcrumbs. God speaks to those who are listening. And when your spirit starts picking up these subtle signals, it's often because heaven is trying to prepare your heart for what's next. But here's the thing. Before God changes your story, He usually changes your identity. Look at the pattern. Abram became Abraham. Jacob became Israel. Saul became Paul. Each transformation began with an internal shift before an external breakthrough. So don't be surprised if lately you feel like you're losing who you were. That's not a breakdown. That's a becoming. God is stripping away the false labels, the old wounds, the borrowed expectations, so you can finally see who you really are. And this transformation rarely happens in public. It happens in the private places, the late-night prayers, the tears no one sees, the quiet decisions to keep going when no one is clapping. That's where the story starts to shift. In the hidden places, when no one is watching but God. There comes a moment often unnoticed when you realize the pain served a purpose. The delay wasn't denial. The loss made space. The silence taught you to listen. The struggle grew your strength. And when that moment comes, everything starts aligning. People show up, doors open, resources appear, not because you forced it, but because you were prepared. The story changes, not by accident, but by divine appointment. But here's the twist. God doesn't just change your story for you. He changes your story through you. He doesn't just lift you up so you can be comfortable. He lifts you so you can lift others. So when your story shifts, don't forget the pain that shaped you. Don't hide your journey. Share it. Your scars will speak. Your past will preach. What you thought disqualified you becomes your qualification. And suddenly, your story becomes someone else's sign. So if you're watching this right now, and you feel lost, uncomfortable, disconnected, under attack, hungry for more, or stuck in silence, maybe it's not what it looks like. Maybe you're not stuck. Maybe you're being positioned. Maybe the pressure you feel isn't the end of your story. Maybe it's the start of something holy. God rewrites stories in the most unexpected ways, from shepherd to king, from prisoner to ruler, from broken to whole. And if you feel like you've been in a long night, remember, dawn doesn't shout when it arrives. It just starts lighting everything up. Your story is not over. In fact, the best part might be the one that's about to begin. If this spoke to your soul, subscribe now and don't miss what's coming next.